The sanctuary was decorated with flowers. Everyone was seated in their seats. The groom and friends of the groom stood to the right of the altar, and the bridesmaids stood to the left. Everything was ready, but not everyone was ready. "Where is he, Mom? Why isn't Daddy here to marry off his only daughter?" "I don't know, Teresa. Hold on. I just got a text message from him." The hopeful look with which she opened the message soon dissolved. "What's he saying, Mom?" "An unavoidable delay. Have the wedding without me." "What? That's all he said? No explanation?" "No, darling, we have to go ahead with the wedding. Nicholas and I have spent too much money to waste." "But who's going to walk me down the aisle? It's ridiculous to go alone." "Wait, what about Gordon?" "You don't want people to know he's your birth father, do you?" "Well, if you don't mind everyone knowing he's been your lover since he knocked you up." "Now is not the time to argue. I'll have your Uncle Frank do it." "Ugh, damn, looks like we don't have a choice." Nora entered the sanctuary and took Frank back to the locker room. "Frank, you're going to have to walk Teresa down the aisle. Nick can't make it." "What? Why me? Why not? We don't have time to argue. Go, go, go." Nora was seated up front, and soon afterward the crowd stood as the bride and her Uncle Frank made their way down the middle aisle of the church. Frank had a little trouble asking, "Who is giving this woman in marriage?" Finally he stammered and said, "Her mother and my son-in-law." The service went on, and everyone was wondering where Nick was. When they reached the ring exchange ceremony, a man walked down the aisle with several large manila folders under his arm. Silence reigned in the room. Standing in front of Nora, he held out one of the folders to her. "Nora Dexter, you have been served with a petition for divorce on the grounds of adultery. It is alleged that you had a long-term affair." She was handed one of the envelopes. Nora stood there in shock. The man walked back down the aisle and stopped halfway down. He turned to his right and said, "Gordon Black, you are charged with the following: alienation of affection, 18 years of alimony, and a bill for your daughter's wedding expenses." Handing him the folders, the man walked out. Gordon's wife slapped Gordon in the face and left. At that moment, the wedding died. People left making snide remarks along the way. After a while, only Nora and Gordon remained. Gordon said, "I guess now we don't have to worry about Nick finding out. Do you think your wife will divorce you? Only if the sun comes up tomorrow morning. Will you need a place to stay tonight?" "I probably don't want to go home right now." "Well, you can come with me then. Everyone knows about us anyway. I've got some good bourbon to get drunk on." They got to Nora and Nick's house and found it surrounded by fire trucks. Gordon approached the crew chief. "Definitely arson. Heavy use of accelerant, probably gasoline." Gordon went back to Nora. "Nick burned everything. Let's go to a hotel. Let's go to a hotel that people who were at the wedding wouldn't go to." "That's a good idea." Nora went to get a room for Gordon and herself. Her credit card was declined. Gordon gave them his, and it worked out. Nora tried to call Nick about the card, but when she called, she was told, "This number is no longer in service." She sighed and said, "Scorched earth." For good reason, Gordon and Nora were not motivated to have sex. The only time in 20 years they didn't have sex was barely outside the hotel room door. "So, Nora, what do we do?" "I need to go to the computers in the hotel business center and see if Nick has taken all our money." She did, and he did. "Gordon, I'm broke until I can get my half of the money back. Check to see if you have any more money." He did, and he did have the money. "I should probably withdraw a large sum before my wife takes it." Gordon managed to withdraw $10,000 before his account was frozen. "Gordon, I think we're both going to need lawyers. Right now I want to get drunk." "I agree." Gordon and Nora got drunk and passed out on the bed, fully clothed. They came downstairs for breakfast in crumpled clothes. "Nora, do you have a place to stay? I'm going to call Candace and see where I stand. I may have to stay somewhere else, too. Just hope she doesn't say she never wants to see me again." "Good luck. I will ask my daughter if I can stay with her. Right now, I need to go to Walmart and get some clothes and toiletries. What are you going to pay for them with?" "I forgot. Gordon, can I borrow some money from you?" "Sure." Gordon drove her to the church where her car had been left. That one was gone. Nick had a spare key and could have just driven away in it. Now Gordon had to take her to Walmart and wait while she shopped. He informed Nora that Candace had given him permission to come home, at least long enough to pack some things. Nora called her daughter. "Teresa, it's your mom." "Mom, how could he?" I thought Daddy loved me. He may have ruined my marriage. Johnny won't talk to me now. What am I gonna do? I don't know. I know I need a place to stay. Can I stay with you for a while? Why don't you come home, or did your stubborn father kick you out? No, he burned me out. What? Yeah, he burned down our house. He's probably gonna get arrested for arson. Dad burned down our house. He'd have to be awfully evil to do that. That's an understatement. I think you can stay at my place, but if Johnny calls and wants to come back, you'll leave. It's a deal. I'll be right over. Oh, can't you pick me up? Legal proceedings. A fire inspector pressed charges against Nick. Nick pleaded not guilty and went to trial. In the interim, he remained in jail instead of being released on bail. Nora and her lawyer used this time to try to find out where the money he had taken was. She figured he must have turned it into cash and stashed it in some place he refused to reveal. Nora waited until after the trial to file for divorce on the advice of her attorney. He said a guilty verdict would make for a good divorce proceeding. The prosecutor brought in an arson expert to testify that the fire was an act of arson. Nick's attorney asked no questions. The prosecutor then called Nora to testify about what was going on that might have motivated Nick to burn down their house. She said they argued over wedding items and then he didn't show up to walk his daughter down the aisle. This time, Nick's attorney asked questions. Miss Dexter, are you aware that perjury is a crime? Objection. Affects the credibility of the witness. Overruled, but watch yourself. Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mrs. Dexter, why did you lie about your daughter being Mr. Dexter's daughter? She is his daughter. It's his name on the birth certificate. He raised her with me her whole life. Does the birth certificate list the name of her biological father? Silence. No. There was a murmur from the crowd. Whose name should appear on the birth certificate as the father? Gordon Black. How long have you and Mr. Black been hornswoggling your husband? Our entire marriage, the judge interrupted. Mr. Conlon, do you realize you're establishing motive for your client? Yes, Your Honor, my client would rather publicize his wife's infidelity than avoid the consequences of his actions. If that's the case, I find Mr. Dexter guilty of arson. After a short recess, I will hear sentencing recommendations. Upon returning from recess, the prosecutor stated that the facts are not in dispute. Mr. Dexter intentionally set fire to the house he shared with his wife and, until recently, his daughter. Almost all of Mrs. Dexter's belongings and some of Miss Dexter's belongings were destroyed. Since insurance does not cover arson, the only satisfaction she can get is to send her husband away for as long as the law allows. She will sue him for divorce and compensation for all she has lost. Nick's attorney spoke up. My client burned down his house? Yes. But the key word is that it was his house. The deed to the house was not in his wife's name. All of her and her daughter's belongings are in plastic bags in a storage unit, the key to which I'm handing over to her attorney right now. Your Honor, we ask you to consider what would be the normal reaction of any man learning that his wife had sex with another man before and throughout their 22-year marriage. This illicit sex resulted in the birth of a baby girl that his wife, and later his daughter, deliberately passed off as his own. Their divorce and related litigation will decide the equitable division of property, but since there is no substantial loss of property on Mrs. Dexter's part, we believe Mr. Dexter should receive the minimum penalty. As he left, Nick said to Nora, "See you in divorce court." Divorce. Coming into the divorce hearing, Nick looked good. He had been working out, and it had helped him lose pounds and tone his muscles. Nora, on the other hand, looked terrible. Gordon made a deal with his wife that they would stay together. It turned out that Gordon's wife had also been unfaithful. They agreed to forgive each other one last time, but Candace was to control all the money from now on. He moved back home. Nora suffered financially and socially. The divorce was her chance to get back to normal. The money Nick owed her would give her a chance to rebuild, perhaps in another city. Your Honor, Mrs. Dexter is demanding half of all assets that were in their accounts based on a list of all assets from 6 months ago. She's demanding half of what Mr. Dexter made from the sale of the land on which their house stood. In addition, she is demanding alimony of $2,000 a month for 5 years. Mr. Stevens? My client was cheated on by his wife and her lover for over 20 years. My client was led to believe that the child his wife gave birth to was his. He loved that child, and had been an exceptionally good father for over 18 years. It wasn't until he overheard a conversation between his wife and daughter the day before their wedding that he learned that his wife had been tooting his horn for his entire marriage. "We have the tape for replay." Objection. Neither my client nor her daughter authorized the recording. "This isn't criminal court. Family court has more lenient rules. I'd like to hear the tape." "Yes, Your Honor." The tape. "Mom, you know what would be cool for the wedding?" "Honey, we're already over budget." "It's not going to cost anything." "Okay, what would be cool?" "If both of my dads walked me down the aisle, Gordon and Nick." She giggled. "Are you out of your fucking mind? I spent 20 years carefully making sure Nick never found out. Even poor, gullible, ignorant Nick might guess if you did. No, it's too big a risk. If the risk of sleeping with Gordon for over 20 years is worth it, why not just dump Dad for Gordon?" "Because your dad is a wonderful husband and father. He's the everyday man I want to come home to. Gordon, on the other hand, is the man who comes around every once in a while to give me sex. It's simple. I like Nick for marriage and Gordon for sex. That's not to say your dad's bad in bed, but Gordon's great. I've always wanted them both. I don't even know which one I'd choose if I had to. I wish I could tell my girlfriends that my real dad is Gordon. They all think Nick's a nerd." The tape stopped. The judge ruled that the wife would get an equal division of property, but reduced the child support to $1,000 a month and only for 3 years. Nick agreed. He had just received $250,000 from Gordon to settle all 3 lawsuits against him. He took that money to buy a condo near his work. A few months later. "Dad? Sorry, Teresa, Gordon's not here. Dad, you know you're the only real father I ever had. Gordon was just Mom's sex toy. How long have you known I'm not your father?" "Not until the trial, like everyone else." "Your mom didn't tell you about the divorce hearing?" "Yeah, she got half the assets and some alimony." "Did she tell you about the tape?" "What tape?" "The one I made the week before the wedding between you and your mother, where you ask Gordon and me to walk you down the aisle." "Oh, shit. Whatever I said, I didn't mean it. I was just joking with my mom. Gordon means nothing to me." "Well, you just admitted you lied to me. You've known about Gordon for a long time and you never told me." "My mom would kill me if I told you. You can't blame me for that." "Yes, I can. Luckily, chronologically, you're an adult. From now on, I'm not responsible for anything you do, father or not." "You're still gonna pay for college for me, right? You promised." "I'm sorry. You lied to me and I lied to you." "Dad, don't hang up. Dad!" At the coffee shop. "Do you mind if I sit next to you, Nick?" "Uh-uh. Are you here by accident or on purpose?" "On purpose. I wanted to talk to you after we both calmed down." "So, Nora, do you think I've calmed down?" "I hope so. I wanted to give myself a chance to say I'm sorry, truly sorry. The sex with Gordon was good, but it wasn't worth our marriage. We got away with it for so long that I took you for granted. What I miss most about our marriage is the friendship. I miss being able to talk to you, especially when we're cozying up on the couch. You were my best friend in addition to being my husband. I valued both. Nick, isn't there a chance we can go back to being just friends? You still mean a lot to me." "I'm surprised. No requests for money? No requests to forgive our daughter? No anything?" "Sorry to disappoint you, but no. It's hard to live with someone for over 20 years and just abruptly break up with them. Despite our divorce, I never stopped caring about you. If you want, we can meet at Starbucks or some other neutral place if you're willing to meet me." "Maybe. The exasperation isn't as strong as it was when I first found out. This may surprise you, but I also miss the times when we just talked. You're a smart woman with good ideas. I think we could try at the very least. I mean, we can always stop if we want to. Tuesday night works for me. Besides talking, I'll never get tired of reminding you how worthless you thought I was in bed." Nick smiled. "You know very well that I loved you and I enjoyed our sex life. Let's not talk about that anymore. When we meet, it should be off the list of topics. Tuesdays work for me, too." For several months, the Tuesday meetings went well. Despite how their marriage ended, there were many shared, fond memories, even if they were just fond memories. Nick was the only one who had talked about them going to her house to talk away from prying ears. Nora agreed because she wanted to snuggle up to each other, talk, and drink something other than expensive coffee. They both began to feel like old times. Nora began to feel safe when she broached the subject that was going to make him invite her to live with him again. "Nick, do you enjoy these weekly conversations and reminiscences?" "Yes, very much. I'm glad you offered to do it." "You know what else would be fun?" "What?" Nora felt it was time to take a risk. "There's something else I've been missing. When we were married, after we talked, we would most often go upstairs, take off all our clothes, and enjoy each other. Can we do that tonight? Please." Nick thought about the suggestion for a moment, then smiled and said, "Nora, go upstairs and get the bed and yourself ready. I, on the other hand, will prepare drinks for us and be up shortly." "Yes, dear." She ran up the stairs. Nora was almost ecstatic. Her plan to slowly entice Nick had worked. Once she convinced him that he could satisfy her sexually, they would be together again. She decided not to wear the nightgown, no matter how sexy it looked. She threw off her clothes and lay on the bed, inviting him to enjoy her body. She waited and waited. Something wasn't right. She threw on a robe and went downstairs. "Nick, where are you, honey?" There was no answer. Nora saw something on the kitchen table. It was a note. "Imminent delay. You don't have to wait for me. You can go to hell." I was informed by a close friend that my wife of 21 years was cheating on me. My buddy Bruce called me at work and told me that he had just seen my wife Libby walking hand in hand to a cheap hotel on the outskirts of our town. He said he took some pictures on his phone. Of course, I didn't believe it at first. I figured there had to be a logical explanation for her going to a hotel room with another man in the middle of the day when she was supposed to be working. My name is TJ, by the way. I asked Bruce to send me the pictures right away. I sat stunned. There was no mistaking that the pictures were of my wife, Libby. In the evening, I asked her how her day had gone, asking if she had gone out to dinner. To my surprise, she lied and said she ate at her desk. I threw her a surprised look and asked her again, "Are you sure you didn't leave for lunch?" Libby's response shocked me even more. I said no. "What? Are you saying I'm lying?" There was anger in her voice, not a trace of guilt. The pictures along with her lies really didn't prove anything. I did what every man who thinks his wife is cheating on him does. I turned to the private investigator. They turned out differently than I expected. Instead of a dingy, smoke-filled office with an old, disgraced cop, I was ushered into a bright, modern office with two nerdy young men. They impressed me with their technical savvy and their understanding of how to get into places ordinary people can't get into. While they were impressive, they didn't come cheap. Not cheap, but very effective. 2 weeks later, I was back in their office. A folder was placed on my desk containing a full report with photos and videos. It detailed my wife's affairs with two different men, one with a salesman at her job and the other with a mechanic she met while fixing her car. The salesman, Dan Calhoun, she dated for over a year, and the mechanic, Henry Chambers, for only a few months. With evidence in hand, my next stop was the divorce attorney. If it had been a one-time thing, I might have been able to forgive her, but cheating on me for over a year was too much. The report had several transcripts of her liaisons with the salesman that indicated he was not her first lover. It was also clear from these transcripts that Libby liked her current situation and wanted it to continue. She liked the security and stability of life that I provided for her, but she also liked sleeping with other men. She worked, but it was my business that provided our good lifestyle. Our son and daughter attended Big Ten colleges because of the money I was making. My visit to a divorce attorney was enlightening, to say the least. I quickly realized that divorce laws are not interested in the person who cheats. They are set up for the person to be screwed over in every way possible. Yes, this is just my editorial, but the attorney agreed with it. I left the attorney's office angry and depressed. The next problem shouldn't have been a problem, but given my wife's actions, I was depressed about this one as well. I had a meeting with my business's accountant, Jerry. Jerry had to explain the great success my business was expecting. We had 3 new accounts that were going to push the value of the business above $10 million. Jerry stopped halfway through. "I don't understand. I'm telling you that all your hard work has finally paid off, making you a rich man, and you look like you're going to kick my ass. I swallowed hard and told Jerry my sad story of how Libby cheated on me and how the lawyer told me that not only would she get half of everything, but I would probably have to liquidate the company to pay her off. That's not counting the monthly alimony she would receive to continue having her lovers. The only saving grace was that the kids were out of the house. Oh, the house. She would get that too. Jerry gave me his condolences and suggested we postpone our meeting until I had recovered. Jerry packed up his things and went back to his office. My afternoon at the office went completely unproductive until late afternoon when Jerry called. TJ, could you stop by my office on your way home? I have an idea. Anything to delay my meeting with Libby was preferable. Jerry led me into his office and closed the door. I need to ask you a few questions first. You've always told me that Libby has little interest in your business. Is that still true? I nodded, not sure what he was getting at. Then I can assume she has no idea that the value of your company is about to skyrocket? That's right. I've never talked business with her, and we've hardly spoken lately either. What's your point? Jerry held up his hand. Bear with me, I'm almost there. One last thing. She doesn't know that you know she's cheating on you, does she? That's right, I haven't confronted her or said a word. Okay, divorce is your solution. Weren't you listening? The lawyer said I would be raped in a divorce. No, you will be raped if you face her and divorce her. You divorce her and force her to agree to your terms. How the hell am I going to do that? Blackmail her with pictures and videos? With that kind of money at stake, she won't care. You're thinking about it wrong. She'll agree because she won't know what's really going on. Have you ever heard of a tax divorce? I looked at him, shaking my head in confusion. There was a thing a few years ago where couples would get divorced at the end of the year to pay their taxes. There was an influx of these tax divorces in December for couples where both worked, but one earned significantly more than the other. This could have helped some couples save enough money to take an expensive trip where they would remarry. The government has closed most of those loopholes, but I'll bet your wife doesn't know much about tax law. I don't know, Jerry. Several times in the transcript she says she doesn't want a divorce, she just wants to have men on the side. She likes the life I provide for her. She's even talked about quitting her job to have more time for fun. That's even better. We use her greed against her. You'll tell her that your business is going to expand, but there will be significant tax implications. You'll tell her that you may have to make a few more trips out of town, but she'll be able to leave her job for a while. She'll realize that this is the best of all worlds for her. More time to have fun and more money. Tell her I've offered a tax-free divorce and the compensation is a trip to Hawaii to remarry and a lot more money. Is that legal? I asked. Of course it's legal. We'll draw up the papers on fair terms, but you get to keep your business and pay no alimony. Let me get started on the project. I'll contact you in a couple days. It'll work, I promise. You have to keep it a secret that you know about her cheating. We don't want her to get suspicious about your motives. This is probably the hardest part, I thought to myself. It was hard not to show my contempt for Libby. I almost lost my temper when she told me she had to work late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The private investigator's report indicated that she was sleeping with the mechanic on Tuesdays and the salesman on Thursdays. I was a little sarcastic, but kept my cool. A week later, Jerry had all the paperwork ready. He gave me a report to give to Libby that indicated how much we would save. It also included the details we would have to fulfill to save money, such as putting the house in Libby's name only. I was glad that it was Wednesday that I was facing the conversation. I didn't think I'd be able to hold my temper if I found out she'd just been fucked by one of her boyfriends. I was sitting at the kitchen table with 3 folders on the table when she walked in. Honey, we need to talk. I knew those words would get her attention. The pale, shocked look on her face told me I was right. Libby eyed the folders apprehensively. Is something wrong? She asked in a trembling voice. I picked up the first folder and opened it. No, it's good, but I want you to hear me out before you say anything. My company's business is going well, but it's about to get even better. You know I've been able to provide well for our family, but I've always had to put most of the profits back into the business. Now we are on the verge of making it all pay off. The problem is the tax deductions. Along with my accountant, he found a way for us to save about $50,000. Libby's eyes lit up. 50,000? We won't have to do anything illegal, will we? No, he said it's perfectly legal and lots of people do it. Okay, TJ, stop dancing around it. What are you talking about? I pulled out a second folder. It's called a tax divorce. Libby gasped. Just hear me out. A lot of people do this. It fixes the marriage penalty. In our case, the new income will bring a big penalty. Jerry said a lot of his clients get divorced in December and then use the money they saved to go on an exotic vacation in January to get married again. They've changed some rules that say you have to stay divorced for 6 months or it's fraud. Jerry added this just in case Libby typed tax divorce into Google because it was a new government condition. Libby had a shocked look on her face. We had to start dealing with the aftermath. We would only be divorced on paper. Jerry said we might have to stay divorced for the whole year to get a tax break for the second year, which could be substantial. I would have to work a few more hours and take a few more trips, but it would pay off for the company and for us. You may even be able to quit your job. There are a few details we'll have to work out. I could see the wheels turning in her head. I knew exactly what she was thinking. More money and more time to sleep with her boyfriends. What are the details? Actually, we're supposed to be getting a divorce. I picked up the third folder. We'll have to divide our assets. I quickly deeded the house to you and then split our bank accounts. I'll transfer all utilities into your name, but the payments will go into my account. Nothing will change, but we'll have more money. Libby started to speak with a strange expression on her face, but I quickly stopped her by jabbing my finger in her direction. Look, I know how much our marriage means to you. We don't have to do this. We can just pay the extra taxes. At that moment, I realized I had her in my grasp. No, I think that's a good idea. I don't like the thought of us getting divorced, but if it's just on paper, it'll be worth it. I struggled to suppress a smirk. I don't want to rush you into this decision, but Jerry said we have to act fast to make it work. We have to sign the petition and those permits, and he'll do the rest. Jerry said you need to read everything before you sign. I have a trip that starts this Friday and will last through the weekend. I knew this would be a deal-breaker for my loving, cheating wife. Libby picked up the petition folder. I think this is a good idea. I'll read it and sign it so you can have your accountant come in. Libby signed the papers before I went on the trip I told her about. It wasn't a business trip, but I needed time to set things up and see if she had fallen in love with her boyfriends. I had installed hidden cameras in the house to record her actions. True to her mechanic nature, she was sleeping with her on my bed within an hour of my departure. The divorce went as planned and not much changed in our lives except for the complete cessation of our sex life. Libby asked about it a couple times, but I always blamed it on stress from work and new bills. She didn't push for it since she was getting everything she needed from her 2 boyfriends. I watched Libby and her actions in our bedroom. Not that I wanted to see her having sex with other men. I had already developed an immunity to that. I needed to know if she had figured out my plan. The divorce became final when the judge signed the decree a week after we filed it, but there were restrictions on when it could be changed and why. Jerry said we had to wait 180 days before doing anything permanent. As we approached the 180-day divorce deadline, I wanted out. I sat down at the table with Jerry to determine the best exit plan. Yes, I wanted out, but I wanted to humiliate her along the way. I wanted her infidelity exposed in the most public way possible. Look, TJ, if you reveal that you knew about her infidelity before the divorce, she can convince the judge that the tax divorce was just a sham to keep your money from her, Jerry said. But she's the one who cheated. Shouldn't she be punished? You don't want to risk it, do you? That would be easy. Catch her in bed with any of her assholes and move out. Take some pictures so she can't deny it. On that basis alone, you'll say you're done with her and you just won't remarry. I jumped up. And she gets away with cheating on me. I wouldn't call it getting away with it. She's lost all interest in your company. You don't have to pay alimony, and most importantly, you're free of her. No, there has to be a way to burn her without jeopardizing the tax divorce. Jerry held up his hand. Wait, you have plenty of videos of her having fun after the divorce, right? I nodded. Use that to publicly announce that you're not getting remarried. Shut down the house's communications and stop her cash flow. Drop a bomb on her lovers and their wives and just sit back and watch the fireworks. I can say I discovered her cheating after the divorce and still set her on fire. TJ, now would be a good time to undercut her. We have the first of 3 big contracts coming up. You're going to be very rich. I say we find a place to live and then move out. Leave her hanging for a week or so, then drop her a bomb. You need to decide if you're going to let your children know what's going on. They are the hardest part of the equation. When they find out about her deception, I think they'll be on my side. She constantly preached to them about honesty and loyalty while they were growing up. She made a big deal to our daughter by ratting her out to her then-boyfriend for going to a concert with another boy. As Libby told her, dishonesty in a relationship means the death of that relationship. Jerry grinned. Gosh, what a hypocrite. I think you're right. Your daughter will hate her when she finds out. One last thing, you know you don't have to do anything to break things off with Libby. It's already done, you're not married, and the court order is final. Stop paying her bills for a house you don't own and be done with it. I finished my meeting with Jerry, intending to proceed with my divorce from Libby. I was already looking for a place to live, and I had a nice apartment just waiting for me to pull the trigger. In a week, I was ready to move out of my former home. It was important for me to meet both of my children before the bomb hit the ground. Both were living on their college campuses taking summer classes. My son, Derek, was quick to take my side. He was very angry at what his mother was doing and had done, but agreed not to say anything to her until I moved out. Jennifer, my daughter, was not so quickly convinced. Her problem was that she couldn't believe her mother was capable of such a thing. She didn't believe her mother could cheat on me, given all her sermons about honesty and fidelity. I hated to do it, but I came prepared. I showed my daughter ample evidence to prove her mother's deception. When she saw the videotapes, she became very angry. Jennifer wanted to confront her mother herself. All I had to do was convince her to keep quiet until I moved out of the house. Once I got back to town, the news was very good. The second contract was ready, and I signed the lease for my new apartment. The furniture will be delivered in 2 days. In 2 days, I would start dropping bombs. The first order of business was to move out of the house. While Libby was at work, I accomplished this task easily enough. With the help of a rented truck and a few buddies, I took everything I wanted out of the house. I didn't take any furniture, just my belongings, toys, tools, and clothes. I put away the cameras I had set up around the house. Libby had gotten so used to my absence that she didn't notice me being gone for a few days. It was the second part of my plan that made her notice that my stuff was gone. The second part of my plan was to blow up her lovers. The wives of the mechanic and the salesman had received untraceable emails with video files of their husbands sleeping with Libby. I felt sorry for what these families would suffer, but I wasn't the one who started this. I would end it. 30 minutes after I sent the emails to the wives, Libby called, leaving a message for me to call her. She assumed I was still out of town. In the evening, the calls became even more frantic. She realized that my clothes and other belongings were missing. I continued to ignore her calls and texts. Both of my children called to say that their mother had called in a panic, wanting to know if they had heard from me. Both covered for me, saying they hadn't spoken to me in a while. They each tried to get her to tell them what was going on, but she wouldn't give any information. She wouldn't even tell them why she was looking for me. I let her wait another 2 days with no communication. Even though it was Thursday, I figured she would be home alone after I dropped bombs on 2 of her lovers. My God, TJ, what are you doing knocking on the door of your own house, and where have you been? I've been calling you for days. No, Libby, this is your house. After our divorce, you have every right to it. Can I come in? Yes, of course, come in. What is this nonsense you speak of? We need to talk about when we're going to get married again. I'm tired of this whole fake divorce game. Okay, that's what I want to talk about too. Our divorce is quite real and quite legal, and you seem to be taking full advantage of it. There was fear in Libby's eyes, but she was indignant. What does that mean? I told you I'm done with this nonsense and ready to renew our vows. I couldn't help myself and burst into laughter. Stop laughing. Where did all your stuff go? Oh, you noticed. I moved out. I got tired of sleeping in the bed you have your lovers in. Libby sighed. Please, like you said, let's stop these games. I know you sleep with 2 different men on Tuesdays and Thursdays and when I'm out of town. I don't think we're legally married, so technically you're not cheating on me. But as a result of your activities, I've reconsidered my decision to renew our marriage vows. I think we're better off staying divorced. That's why I moved out." Shock and anger filled Libby's face. "What? No, that's not the way it works. We're married, and this tax divorce thing was a sham. I'm going to court. We're married, for crying out loud." "Again, no, it's perfectly legal. You signed it in front of a judge. I suppose you could claim you committed fraud on the court, but that would be a felony. I won't support you if you admit to the crime." "To hell with that, I know what you're up to. Somehow you found out about me and Dan and came up with this whole tax divorce scheme to cheat me out of my stake in your company. Well, that's not going to work." "My God, Libby, are you telling me you cheated on me while we were married?" "You know very well that you cheated. I know it was you who told their wives. I hope you're happy you ruined 2 marriages with your little anonymous letters. Both of them have been kicked out of the house and are facing very difficult divorces." "Both of them? Oh my God, there are 2 of them? You cheated on me with 2 men. Anyway, our divorce is legal. You can spend all the money you have to try to get it annulled, but I think you're wasting your money. You might want to think about what you are going to tell our children about your cheating. I think they are very disappointed in you." "You son of a bitch, you told them, didn't you? Why the hell would you do that?" "Yeah, I don't know what you're so upset about. I should have told them why we weren't getting remarried." "Cut the crap. We are married and intend to stay that way. It's over with Dan and Tim. It didn't mean anything. I love you. I know I've made some mistakes, but I want to do everything in my power to be the best wife I can be." "Libby, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you realize what you did was wrong. Your next husband will benefit from your experience. By the way, I haven't told your parents yet. I'll let you tell them unless you want me to do it too." My mom was shocked. She couldn't believe you were such a slut. I had to show her some tamer videos to make her believe me. She wanted me to tell you that you wouldn't be invited to Thanksgiving or Christmas or anywhere. She said she'd punch you in the face if she ever saw you again. Libby babbled on about me leaving our marriage and begged me to give her another chance. I left the house and she was crying and cursing at me at the same time. Libby tried to get the divorce decree reversed. When that failed, she filed a lawsuit to modify the terms of the divorce. It was comical to watch her argue in open court to the judge that I knew she had been seeing 2 men for a year before the divorce, and that I had made up the tax divorce to cheat her out of her share of my money. She seemed to forget that her parents and our children were in the courtroom when she made these statements. When the judge ruled against her, he lectured her about cheating and blaming others for her own problems. After the hearing, my parents gave her a scandal about her cheating with 2 men while we were married. Apparently, she told them that I left her for another woman and tried to cheat her out of her business. It ended with her mom punching Libby in the face. Libby turned to Jennifer and Derek, who turned away from her mother. Neither of them wanted anything to do with her after the hearing. Mark Wagner took another slow sip from his glass and set it back down on the worn, dark table that separated him and his 2 very confused sons-in-law. He shifted his gaze from one to the other. They were strongly protesting his decision to divorce their sister. It was easy to understand their anger and confusion. The brothers, Brad and Gary, had asked Mark to meet them at the small, quiet bar where they now sat. The high-backed booth afforded them privacy, but they were still talking in raised tones. Brad tried again. "Come on, Mark. You're being unfair. I know what our sister did was stupid, but you went along with it." Gary nodded in agreement. "While I would never have left my wife with a group of guys I just met, you let her. She said you let her stay with them and have a dance. I don't know why you did that, but now you can't punish her for it." Mark snorted. "I think you've been skillfully misinformed. Tell me exactly what Jill told you." Gary gestured for Brad to answer, and Brad cleared his throat. "Jill said you met some new friends you met earlier at the resort you went to last week for your anniversary. She said it was a wild bunch and you all got pretty drunk. At one point you decided to call it a night and wanted to go back to your room, but she wanted to have some more fun. You told her she could stay with them, but you had enough for one night and went to bed. Then when she tried to tell you about it, you got angry and demanded that you both leave the resort a day early." She said you barely spoke to her and the two of you flew home. Jill said she tried to get you to explain why you were so angry, but you kept saying she'd made her choice. And yesterday she was served with divorce papers at work. Gary confirmed everything Brad had said with a nod. What the hell, Mark? You're divorcing my sister because she hooked up a little later than you wanted? That's crazy. Mark shook his head, took another sip of his bourbon, and took a deep breath. Guys, Jill didn't lie to you, but she didn't tell you the whole story. Okay, then tell us what she left out, Brad said. We spent the day at the beach. Jill was attracting a lot of attention in her new tight bikini. Several guys walked past our lounge chairs to get a better look at her, and a few even stopped and tried to strike up a conversation with her. She was clearly flattered and was eager to chat with those who stopped to gawk and chat with her. A few times I had to tell them to leave, and Jill took a little offense at me for being rude to her fans. I just laughed and said I didn't want any of them to think my beautiful wife was single and suggested they find a single woman to chat to. I wasn't angry. I just wanted to spend some quiet time enjoying the beautiful beach with my wife. Jill relaxed after I said that, but I could tell she didn't like the fact that I had rained on her parade. We went back to the room and got in the shower together. The brothers grimaced. Let's just say she teased me enough to make me howl with delight, but then got out of the shower saying we had to go make dinner reservations. We each drank a bottle of wine and had a romantic dinner. I was anxious to get back to the room, but she wanted to go dancing. As you know, Jill loves to dance, so we went to the small living room adjacent to the dining area. We danced a few times and then found a table. I went to the bar to get drinks, and when I came back, there was another table pushed up to our table, and there were several young guys sitting around it and at our table. I walked over to the group and stood behind the guy who had taken my seat. Jill looked up at me, held out her hand to take her drink, and then continued her conversation with the young stud sitting in my seat. I waited about 20 seconds while they talked, then put my drink in front of him and told him loudly that he had taken my seat. They both fell silent, and he moved to the same seat. No sooner had I sat down than Jill moved to my chair, patted her former chair, and moved my drink to that seat. I wasn't sure what she was doing, but I sat down, and she reached out to stroke the inside of my thigh. I looked at her hand, then turned to speak to her, but all I could see was the back of her head. She leaned over to talk to the guy who was sitting in my chair. She was totally into this guy and just used her right hand to distract me. It worked for a few moments, but then I got angry and yanked her hand away. That got her attention, and she turned to face me. She quickly realized I was angry. Jill started introducing me to Danny, Jim, Steven, and Mark, the guys she had talked to on the beach the day before. She said that while I was gone, they saw her sitting by herself and came over to say hello. Before I could answer her, she said she had promised each of them a dance, got up, and left with the guy sitting next to her. Gary interjected. So let me understand. She invited these guys to sit with you and agreed to a dance with each of them without asking you about it? Yeah, I had no idea what was going on. I was at the bar getting drinks. I didn't want them there, and I certainly didn't want to compete with 4 strangers for my wife's attention. So what did you do? I turned to the other 3 guys and said that Jill and I were here to celebrate our 7th anniversary, and I'd appreciate it if they'd leave us alone and let us get on with our evening. Gary sighed. I take it they didn't get the hint. I shook my head. Jill came back to the table with Danny. She giggled as she sat at the table sipping her drink. Then she stood up and asked me to get her some more while she danced with Jim. I grabbed her arm and roughly pulled her back to my seat. I told her she'd had enough of dancing with these guys and we should leave. She lashed out and said she had promised each of them a dance and wasn't going to leave. I reminded her that we were here to celebrate our anniversary, and my job of delivering drinks while she danced with strangers was not my idea of a celebration. Jill stood up and said I shouldn't worry, because she was sure one of the guys would bring her drinks. She said she was just having fun, and I was being a jerk because I didn't get what I wanted in the shower. At that, 4 young guys started laughing at me and commenting that I must not be able to show Jill a good time. Oh, shit. Brad said as Gary shook his head. I'd had enough at that point. I stood up and got in Jill's face. I told her I'd had enough shit for one night and I was leaving. I told her she could come with me and try to salvage the rest of our holiday, or she could stay and party with her new friends. I shoved my purse in her hands and walked away from the table. I stopped and looked right at her, but she didn't budge. I could tell that Jill was really mad at me, but there was no way I expected her to do what she did next. She threw her purse back on the table and said she was going to finish her dance. She brushed me off by saying she had her own room key, so I didn't need to wait for her. Holy shit, Brad said. Okay, sure, that's disrespectful, but is that really a deal breaker? I mean, I get why you're pissed, but she just danced with a couple guys and then went back to the room. Did she apologize when she came in? If she had, maybe we wouldn't have had such a big fight, but that's not what happened. The brothers looked at each other and sank into their chairs. What happened? As you can imagine, I was very angry when I got back to the room. It was almost 11 p.m. I wandered around the room for a bit, waiting for her to show up. I looked in the minibar and had a couple beers. By the time I finished the second beer, it was almost midnight, and I knew the lounge closed at midnight. I decided to take a shower and try to cool off. At 12:45, she still hadn't come back, so I put on my shorts and went down to the lounge. There was an overhead light on, and they were cleaning up. I asked the bartender if she saw my wife leave the bar. It took $50 to refresh her memory, but she told me what happened after I left. According to her, 2 guys left and Jill stayed with 2 others, dancing and drinking until closing time. One of the guys bought 2 bottles of wine and Jill left with them. I asked her if Jill was okay, and she said Jill was laughing and hanging on the guys, but left on her own feet. It cost me another $20 to get the room number of the room the wine was charged to. I knocked on the door of the room the barmaid gave me. A shirtless guy was laughing about something as he opened the door. I squeezed past him into the room. Jill was lying on the couch, making out with Danny. She was dressed, but Danny had his hand down her top. The shirtless guy shouted a warning, and Jill and Danny quickly separated. I wanted to punch the little asshole in the face, but he climbed over the back of the couch and ran into the bathroom. Jill jumped up and rushed at me. I grabbed her by the scruff of the neck, and she fell on her ass. I turned around and walked out. Jesus Christ, exclaimed Brad. She sure as hell didn't tell us anything about it. She said she tried to assure you that nothing happened, and you pushed her away. She didn't mention that she was in the other guy's hotel room. Yeah, she's been doing that a lot lately, telling half-truths. A few months ago, I thought maybe she was hanging around with some guy at her job, but I had no proof. She denied it, of course, but there had been tension between us for weeks. I thought a trip to the beach for our wedding anniversary would allow us to repair our relationship, but she took advantage of it to hang out with other guys. Brad and Gary stood up. I'm sorry, Mark. From the way she told it, we thought you were just overreacting, but it looks like our sister screwed up big time. Mark nodded. Guys, ask her about what I said and demand an honest answer from her. I'm sure I can track down the bartender if necessary, but I saw Jill on that couch with Danny with my own eyes. I'm sure if I had waited another 20 minutes, I would have seen something much worse. The brothers stood up and shook my hand grimly. Gary patted my shoulder. Sorry, kid. We should have known you wouldn't do what she accused you of. We'll work it out with our folks. A few days later, my lawyer called and said Jill had agreed to my terms. We would split all of our money 50-50, she would take a little over half of the furniture, and we would keep our cars and retirement accounts. She insisted that we meet one last time before she signed the papers, and I reluctantly agreed. When I arrived, she was already at the attorney's office. He told me that she was in the conference room waiting for me. When I entered the room, she stood up and moved toward me, intending to give me a hug. I walked around the table and sat down. Jill looked offended, but returned to her seat. Okay, Jill, you asked for this meeting yourself. What do you want to say? Mark, I'm sorry for the way I acted. I was mad at you, and instead of talking things out with you, I tried to make you jealous by flirting with those guys. They were young and exuberant and made me feel like a queen. The flattery turned my head, and I decided I needed to get revenge for what you did. I stared at her. What the hell are you talking about? What the hell did I do? Come on, Mark. I saw you at the Hilton. Jane and I both saw you hugging a young black girl. You were right in front of the elevator, so Jane and I knew you were upstairs with her, you bastard. How could you do that to me and then come home like nothing happened? It took me a few moments to piece it all together. About 4 months ago? You saw me with a tall, beautiful African-American woman about 23 or 24 years old? Yes, she hugged you and kissed you on the cheek. She must have been very pleased with what you paid her. Paid her? Mark's face darkened with anger. You thought she was a prostitute. Spiked heels, sexy short outfit, huge breasts. And she was all over you, and you were smiling while hugging her. It was disgusting. So, you caught me with a prostitute and didn't say anything about it? I was going to barge in there and confront you, but Janie stopped me. She said all men are pigs and I should get my revenge before I confronted you. Janie? Your thrice-divorced friend from work, the same Janie? The girl who, after getting to know me for 30 minutes, told me I wasn't good enough for you, that Janie. Unlike you, she thinks I'm something special. Look, Mark, I don't want to fight. We both made a mistake. Can't we put it behind us and stop this stupid divorce? I forgive you for what you did. Can't you forgive me? You forgive me? Yes, of course I do. I was wicked and acted that way. It was wrong. I ought not to have acted as I did. I should have talked to you. I love you, Mark. I want you to come back. So we're even then? You slept with those 2 guys and now we're even? Asked Mark carelessly. She grinned. Actually, you showed up too early for me to do much with Danny, and I didn't sleep with Stephen. But none of that matters now. It matters to me, Mark said softly. Jill tilted her head and looked at him puzzled. Why? You cheated, I cheated. Now we're even, just like you said. No, I just asked if you believed it. You admitted you did one guy and planned to sleep with another, but I interrupted your plans. Yeah, so? You screwed that black slut, so we're even. No, I didn't, and no, I didn't, and no, she didn't, and no, we didn't. What the hell does that mean? Do you remember my PA, Marianne? Don't tell me you slept with her, too. No. That Friday you saw me at the Hilton, I had just dropped Marianne off. She stepped into the elevator, and a second later another elevator opened, and Bree stepped out of it. She came down from her suite to greet Marianne. Bree was shocked to see me, but I explained that Marianne's car had stalled, and I was taking her to the Hilton. Bree hugged me and kissed me because she was so grateful that I had brought Marianne to her big surprise. You see, Bree ordered lunch delivered to the room, and during lunch she planned to propose to Marianne. Propose? Yes, she and Marianne have been dating for 3 years. But I thought, yeah, you listened to that slut Janie when you both drew the wrong conclusion. So you've never... Didn't cheat? No, but you cheated and... I picked up the phone. Now I have your recorded confession, so sign the damn papers. I turned and walked out. As I closed the door, I heard her wailing. I nodded to the lawyers as they headed into the conference room. Although she nearly had a breakdown in the conference room, the lawyers managed to get all the papers signed and filed. 3 months later, I was divorced. Jill still calls me to this day and begs me to give her another chance. I still have a vivid image in front of me of her rubbing up against some guy to strengthen my resolve to stay away from her. Bree and Marianne invited me over for dinner this weekend. Marianne tells me that Bree's older sister, Grace, will be there too. She claims Grace is the older version of Bree. High praise. Wish me the best of luck.